Hi guys, it's Aluna, back again with another production breakdown video. I made this series to hopefully inspire up-and-coming artists, specifically female artists, to learn how to produce for themselves. I personally hate depending on other people, and while sometimes teamwork can be great and obviously I recommend it, I think it's always good to be able to have the ability to fall back on your own skills, especially when you have a vision in your mind that you know specifically how you want it to turn out, and it's difficult to communicate that to other people sometimes. So I think being able to produce for yourself, or at the very least create an outline of what you'd like to then show somebody else, is always super helpful in the creation process. So yeah, I am here to kind of take you guys through all the way that I make things personally. Everyone works differently. Hopefully this has something that maybe can inspire you, or I try to throw in some tips as we go along, mostly beginner tips, but I don't know, I feel like everybody can learn something new. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy. This episode, we're going to do my song called Latidos, which is off of my new album that's coming out, my debut album. I don't know, it probably won't be out by the time that this video comes out, but it probably will be out soonish. Maybe I'll throw in a release date somewhere over here. I don't know. Anyway, this is what it sounds like.
El tiempo pasa, siento que me quedo igual. El sol me atrapa, la luna no me deja en paz. No me fío a nadie, lo de mi pasado lo dejo todo atrás. No me fío a nadie, lo único seguro está en este compás.
And it's definitely one of my kind of more experimental songs, which is why I thought that it would be really cool to break it down in one of these videos. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy. I have my Logic project pulled up here. So first I used a MIDI from Alchemy, and I layered that with a MIDI sound from Zyklop, which is a free MIDI plugin sound library thing that I downloaded from Dawsome. That's the creators of it, and it's Zyklop. So I'm pretty sure they have other ones that you can pay for, but Zyklop is one of the free ones. As you guys might already know if you've seen some of my other videos, I don't have any plugins that you have to pay money for. I don't even use samples from Splice. I use stock Logic loops sound library stuff. I use stock Logic plugins and effects. So the only kind of extra plugins I have are the free sound library plugins that I would download sometimes for MIDI, and I'll tell you guys exactly which ones those are every time. So let's just get into it. For this song, I actually came up with the melody and the lyrics of the very first part that you'll hear, like, so the verse into the chorus first, and I had that in my head for months. When a song comes to me in that type of way, normally I will then cater the production specifically around a song that already exists in my mind, whereas with some of the other songs that I'd be showing on here, I create the beat first and then I just write to that. So that's like, you know, it just depends. There's different ways of writing, different ways of making a song. For this specific song, I kind of thought of the melody and lyrics first, so that made it so that the song kind of already existed in my mind. So that's why a lot of this stuff is MIDI, more so than some of my other songs where I use kind of samples and stuff like that a little more freely, because I'm still building the song just on the DAW, so I don't really have a specific direction. I'm just kind of doing it intuitively, whereas when I have a clear idea in my mind, I need to be really specific about it, and that's what's so great about MIDI for me. So I had these chords already in my mind, and luckily I play the piano, so I was able to figure them out really quickly. And I have two different sounds here that I stacked. That one, and then I have this one. A lot of what you'll kind of see in this song, and really a goal for a lot of producers, is to create texture as well as creating tension. So like I mentioned, creating tension, I think I talk about it in probably I'd say I'll probably talk about it in every single video, because creating tension to me is so important, and it's really the backbone of almost every good song.
Amusement park workers are this nation's backbone.
Is just the simplicity of creating and releasing tension. But in addition to that, I feel like what makes a sound feel fuller is texture, and you can use texture in so many different ways to create a little bit more dimension. I stacked these two MIDI sounds, which I do a lot. So together they sound like this. So that's kind of what the MIDI is doing, and that continues throughout the first really half of the song, as you can kind of see. And then that continues on into what I would consider to be the hook, essentially, but it's still really the same sound, so just doing different notes. And in the hook, I have two basses come in. Those are stacked as well for the same reason, to kind of add extra dimension. I like a really fat, thick bass a lot of the time, and it's difficult for me to achieve that just with one sole bass. So a lot of the times I'll use two. So the first bass I have, it's from Alchemy, and I have some effects on it, like specifically the pedal board, compression. A lot of that stuff already comes with Alchemy. You can kind of tweak it inside of Alchemy, and then it'll come out looking like this. I really like a pulsating bass though. I think that it just like adds that extra texture that I love. And then the second bass, it hits a little bit harder. So yeah, that one has a little bit more distortion. So together they sound like this. Along with the other MIDIs, they sound like this. And then to transition to the next part of the song, I have a lyric. I basically say, "Lo único seguro está en este compás," which means the only sure thing is this metronome. So for those that don't know what a metronome sounds like, it would be this. Personally, I hate metronomes, actually.
I'm like, what do you say fuck me for?
But that's a different story. But for the purposes of the storytelling of the song, it made sense because it's structurally very, very, it's the only thing you can count on, and it also counts. Anyway, that's what a metronome sounds like. So I considered putting in a metronome sound for this part, like a literal, actual, genuine metronome sound. As you can hear with that metronome, it sounds a little bit slow for what I wanted, because if you listen to the cadence of the words themselves, they're pretty quick. So I felt like if I used an actual metronome to the actual time, it would just slow everything down.
Lo único seguro está en este compás.
See, if you hear that metronome, it's just kind of like, okay, you know, I don't know. I had higher hopes for it. So I built my own idea of a metronome, I guess, using some MIDI. I believe it's a kick, some hi-hats. I don't know what a boop is. That's a boop. A boop and a hi-hat and a snap and another hi-hat, and I think there's like a kick somewhere in there. I don't know. The boop kind of is a giving kick to sort of mark the time in a way that a metronome would kind of mark the time, but a little bit more trappy, I guess you could kind of say, because there's so many hi-hats. I don't know, but just a little bit more modern and not exactly like a literal metronome, a little more musical. So that's what this sounds like. And then to add a little bit of an extra something, I added the sound of a heartbeat, but I actually timed it to stretch each one of the beats of the heartbeat to hit at a specific beat in the bar. And to do that, you click this symbol here, hide show or hide flex. See, I have rhythmic flex. There's a lot of different types of flex. I don't even fully understand flex, but it's basically you can make really, really little adjustments within your audio file in a lot of different ways. You can do it in terms of how fast or slow something goes. In my other song, Mid-20s, that I broke down, I used flex to halftime one of my beat samples. I half-timed it, so I basically stretched it from like this much to this much. That's what halftime means. But yeah, you can do a lot of different things with flex. Honestly, I just kind of have been learning as I go. I don't really know everything about flex, but as you can see with my markers here, I've kind of moved each, see how you can sort of move it? Moved each one to where exactly I wanted it to be. And sometimes that aligns with my boop, my kick here, and sometimes it's at a different moment, just depending on what I wanted for the sound. And that sounds like this. So it gives like a nice little counter beat, like I don't know. I thought it was cool. So that all together sounds like this.
Seguro está en este compás.
And yeah, I'll do the vocals of this part here because there's not that much to it, and it goes like this up until the section changes again. So rather than doing the whole instrumentation part of it and then the whole vocals part, since this song structurally doesn't really make that much sense, it doesn't follow traditional structure, I'll just show you guys the vocals of the first half differently to the way that I would normally approach mixing and recording in this stage of my life. This time I just have the dry vocal because I wanted it to sound a little bit more raw. The overall song, I wanted it to be a little bit kind of almost creepy and a little bit not unsettling, but kind of not the beautiful, fluttery, sparkly songs that some of my other songs tend to be, where the vocals are just like flying around and it's ethereal and it's beautiful. I do think this song has aspects of being that, but the main thing that I wanted to communicate with this was like, I'm just singing it, you're just hearing me sing it. Although I do have auto-tune on it, but that was more of a stylistic choice than anything. I just think it adds an extra little texture to the song. And then the only place where I do have reverb is the ad-libs. So altogether it would sound like this.
El tiempo pasa, siento que me quedo igual. El sol me atrapa, la luna no me deja en paz. No me fío a nadie, lo de mi pasado lo dejo todo atrás.
Okay. I won't show you too much, although I literally already showed you guys the other half of that like earlier, so you've already basically heard the whole beginning. Anyway, for the middle part, I kind of came up with the melody and the lyrics first, and then I made chords to follow what I was singing. So that's what I did on the piano, and that's what I initially had only put the piano there as a kind of guideline, and then I was going to switch it to a different sound, but I kind of liked how the piano sort of grounds you in certain parts, and I think with the midis that I have here that are very like high frequency, kind of up in the clouds, I wanted something that was sort of grounding like that in the middle of the song. So yeah, this is what that sounded like. I have a few different things on here. I have the reverb, I have a little bit of a delay. It kind of adds an extra rhythmic element, I feel. And then I have that same MIDI that I've been doubling my main MIDI with. I also have it following along with the piano, doing the same chords. And I feel like that just fills up the extra space that the piano sometimes leaves. And yeah, I just wanted a little extra something in the back, just creating that sort of cloud that the piano can then bounce around on, if that makes any sense. And then I just have along with it a bass line. The way that I made this is similar to the way that I make a lot of my bass lines when they're just MIDI bass lines, essentially, is I will copy paste my MIDI chords from, like, say the piano. You just go into, the way that I get into here, the shortcut is literally just E. So like if I'm pressing on piano here and I press on this click, you can't really see me click it, but whatever. Then you press E, you get here. And then when you're in here, you press Command A, that selects everything, and then you can just like copy and go into the wherever else you want to go and then paste it. But that's what I did here. I copied my chords from up here into here, and then from there, what I normally do is I delete the top 2 notes of my chord. So like, say here, I would delete like this note, these notes. I would just delete the top notes of the chords, leaving me with the root note of the chord. And then from there, I'll listen to it back. It'll obviously sound very generic and kind of predictable because you're following the root note of every chord, so it's not going to be very musically advanced or anything like that. But I like to use that to create sort of a base to jump off of. So from there, certain notes where I'm like, this is a bit too predictable, or I already used that root note with the chord that repeats itself 2 chords ago, so let me switch it up here. Things like that. I'll pick a different note. So either the middle note of the chord, or so like the 3rd note, the 5th, sometimes I'll do the 7th, sometimes I'll add a passing note here and there to spice it up a little bit, but always jumping off from that pretty generic starting point, because at least that way I know what the root note is for the chord that I'm on, and I'm able to make sure that I'm staying within the key, within the chord. I'm not doing any note that would be like crazy out of key, wrong everything, and just like jarring to the ear. So that's how I'm able to keep myself grounded that way. I'm also pretty good at being able to pick out if something sounds off, so I'll definitely listen to it multiple times and listen to it very critically and make sure that all of my notes are sounding not too dissonant, unless dissonance is the choice, in which case, yes, but when it's not the choice, we don't want it. So yeah, altogether that would sound like this. The vocal for this is just very sweet.
Y yo no sé cómo seguir en recto sin tocar el suelo.
And then that kind of goes on and on and on, and we have this little sort of breath where in the beginning I'm kind of building tension here, especially in the hook with all of the notes I'm holding and going up to something that is like a little bit dissonant. All of this is creating tension, so then this piano section is really just like a breath before I go back into the verse and the chorus. For this one, the only thing that's slightly different is that I take out my main MIDI that I have here, because I wanted the verse to sound a little bit more stripped back for a second there. So I only have this, and then just the vocal, and then it goes back into the regular chorus. And then from there, we have the song kind of going off the rails again. So like the first time the song sort of went off the rails was the piano section, that it's not a bridge, it's not a verse, it's not anything, it's just an extra section. So the next time I do one of those things is now. The only instrumentation I have is percussion, and then the rest is just vocals. And the only thing I have here is a conga, because I love including congas or bongos in my mixes. So I have this one. Then with that, I have a little kick beat that I made with MIDI. I don't know, that was just in my head. I had the and I was like, okay, I'll just make that then. And I figured out what time I need to put all my little things in to make that beat that was in my head, and there we go. So yeah, it can be just that easy, where all you have to do is you go into the MIDI sort of world space, whatever this is called, and when you press command, your pointer turns into a pencil. And then all you have to do is click. You have all these new notes. Oh, I didn't make it anything. Okay, cool. Anyway, you get the gist. It would sound like this. That's kind of cool. It's kind of good. But anyway, that's how I did that. I basically just figured out where each note fit. And sometimes this can be a painstaking process. I am not a drummer. I'm not a percussionist. I do have a good sense of rhythm though, so I very much rely on that. But it really is me just going in, putting this there, and then putting the next one here, and then being like, no, that's not right. And then putting it there and being like, no, that's not right. And then putting it there and then being like, okay, that's right. And then doing that with every single note. Sometimes when I have like, say this sequence, like I'll copy paste it over here. But yeah, that's really how I make those. It's just like moving it until it sounds like what it sounds like in my head. And then the only extra thing I have is a sample. yeah, it's kind of reminiscent of like the reggaeton, but it has like a little bit more of a sway to it, a little bit more of a swagger. I don't know. But yeah, together that sounds like this. So yeah, it kind of hits that much harder when that comes in. I have this in for a little break in the song, and then the vocals come in at the same time that this comes in. And with the vocals, what I'm doing is I'm doing something kind of rhythmic along with the percussion, if that makes sense. So that's this. No me, no me, no me, no me, no me, no, no, no. Then I just have the main vocal alongside that. And all together, it sounds like this. No me fío, no me fío de ti. No me fío, no me fío, no me fío de ti. No me fío. Then going into the final little random verse question mark, bridge question mark part of the song before we get to the very end, I have a section that's all completely a cappella. I just thought that it would be fun to experiment with building a soundscape sort of thing with just my vocals. And what's interesting about this is I started off with a completely different idea and I didn't end up using any of it. But what's interesting about that is that idea led me to the idea that I have now. That's what's in the song. So initially, what I wanted for the song was this. Yo no me fío de ti ni de ninguno más. No me fío de ti ni de ninguno más. And then I added in this, I wanted like a vocally semi-rhythmic thing that I was doing where I'm like speaking like da 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 da, kind of like in Amelia Perez when the guy's like, I want this exchange and I have this something. I haven't actually seen. That's my impression of Katya's impression of that. I want to go to the you got to tell me that we could go to Switzerland and fix my death and can send it. Anyway, so that's what this sounded like. Yo no me fío de ti ni de ninguno más. No me fío de nadie. No me fío de ti ni de ninguno más. Ninguno de por aquí. No me fío de ti ni de ninguno más. So then with that, I liked that. I was like, oh, that's kind of slay. So I ended up with that. Like, that's what ended up being the main vocal within this section. I don't know what to say, I don't know what to do. I close my eyes and all I think about is you. It's obviously I rewrote it, but the cadence is the same, and I have it panned to either side to make it feel really like I'm saying it into your ear, like I'm on either side of your head, like whispering this and saying this into your ear. So panning, basically, I think I've spoken about this before, but panning essentially is moving the sound either all the way to the left of your headphones or all the way to the right of your headphones or your speakers or whatever. You don't have to do it all the way. You can do it like 40-50%, but what I'm doing is called hard panning, which means you are doing it all the way. Some people, me for example, like to hard pan 2 takes of essentially the same thing and either put that in the background or in the foreground, depending on what you want for your song, but it adds a little bit of extra texture because it sounds like it's just one vocal, but in reality it's 2. Yeah, it just adds a little bit extra oomph to your vocal. And then I just have the ad libs, and then the little soundscape I built is this here. So first I have this note that I actually held for longer than this. I think I held it for like 30 seconds or something like that in total. Maybe 20 seconds. It wasn't 30 seconds. 28. It was like 28 seconds. So basically 30 seconds. Basically what I'm saying is I can hold my breath for 6 minutes underwater. I'm just kidding. But yeah, that was tough. Tougher than you might think. Like, oh, 20 seconds isn't that long. It felt long, okay? It's just me holding literally one note. And I have not much on it, just some EQ, compression, auto-tune, and some reverb. The only reason I have auto-tune on it is because it was such a long note for me to hold at such like a soft, breathy kind of tone that I did wobble a little bit. So I needed that auto-tune there. And then alongside that, I just have this kind of harmony that's kind of a weird sort of off-putting kind of harmony that I think works. And then the other two things that I have are what would be your percussion essentially, and it's really me taking like breaths. I kind of wanted to emulate almost like a panic attack kind of. I don't know, it's getting kind of dark. But yeah, I kind of wanted to emulate anxious breathing. And that alongside with my like grounding breath sounds like this. And then all together, this is my little instrumental, so to speak. And all together, we have this.
I don't know what to say, I don't know what to do. I close my eyes and all I think about is you. It's not romantic, I watch my surroundings. I won't let you trap me, I'm keeping my attitude.
That I was pretty proud of because that was the first time I did like a fully a cappella vocal soundscape thing moment. So yeah, more to come, I'm sure. But yeah, that's that little section. And then the last part is literally just a hook. The only difference is I just have the basses instead of having the MIDI in there too. I kind of wanted to not have a moment of tension release since we've been in the piano kind of, or this sort of whole section. Like I feel like from here onwards, it's just tension. There's no rest. And I thought that it sounded a little bit more grave almost when it's just the bass at the end. So
Pero no me fío nadie. Lo de mi pasado lo dejo todo atrás. No me fío nadie.
And that is this whole song done. So yeah, I hope you liked it. Please let me know in the comments if you have any questions or any suggestions for the next video, or anything that you saw me kind of touch on in this video that you didn't fully understand or you want me to elaborate on. Let me know. I will elaborate on it for you. And yeah, probably see you in the next one or whatever comes before that. It's been a pleasure. Bye. Have a good day.
Fío nadie. Lo de mi pasado lo dejo todo atrás. No me fío nadie. Lo único seguro está en este compás.